Hello everyone, this is False Mind Reads, and today I am here to talk to you about Sceptre by Ian C. Esslemont. Now, I read this in 2 weeks about, at the end of December, and I finished it at like 10 o'clock on December 31st. I finished it right before the new year started. Yeah, and I have some thoughts. I already recorded this video, and I wasn't really happy with the coverage I gave the book because this is genuinely one of my favorite, like, Malazan books. I think it's better than even some of Erickson's writing. Or I enjoyed it more than Erickson's writing, I should say. I don't want to pit these two authors against each other and make it seem like it, but I just enjoyed this book a lot. Like, kind of surprised me. I wasn't expecting as much as I got from it to come from it. So I just have bullet points right here if you see me looking over there. I really like, okay, first thing. And this is why I probably won't cover, I'm going to go through like characters and my thoughts on the characters. I won't cover most of the army stuff, the Malazan army, because just blanketly, I have admired for a few books now how he writes the army and how they communicate. Like with Erickson, it feels more like this was kind of a problem that the Crippled God and at least Dust of Dreams had, where we really didn't have like a basis for what the common soldier felt. It was all high level Marine stuff. It was all, which, it's fine. Like, it's fine. I liked it. I have no complaints. Maybe until the 10th book, where suddenly you have to kind of quickly characterize a few of these soldiers to give you a perspective, when you could have had like one common soldier or something, or at least like from the beginning of Dust of Dreams. I don't know. Anyways, but Esslemont really handles this better, where you get a wide variety. You get officers, you get just enlisted. This goes back all the way to Return of the Crimson Guard and Stonewielder, and then again in this book. And I just didn't expect, like, it's not, I don't have standouts, but it just, they feel more cohesive as a faction, I guess, right? He writes factions very well. As like Erickson, he does like I'd say micro, like squad level, really well. And okay, I think Ralik Nam might be the single most underrated character of like the first book. Because in the first book, I was like, I love this dude. This is probably, like, he's probably my favorite of the Phoenix Inn regulars. And then he gets shelved at the end of book one. And it's like, oh, okay. We're going over to Seven Cities. I'm sure it'll be different by the time we get back. And then it's not. And then you keep reading and you get back to number 8 and you're like, I did like this guy, but he's different. He's a different guy. That time in the Finnest house really kind of changes a person. Not changes, but like it changes your trajectory. You can't just be normal after resting in the Finnest house for years. But I still really like him. He's still that like grounded. I don't know, not grounded, but like he's believable. He has believable reactions to stuff that I kind of relate to. When something happens, he goes, what the fuck? I go, what the fuck? We're like, he's just like me, except more athletic. He's a character. And you know what? The Nom family line, I think, is just a blessed line, because Torvald, well, I did think that like I think Torvald really in this book has an adventure, but it's an Esslemont adventure, where I think that I would love to see another Erickson adventure with Torvald, because he has two instances where he could go on this like 800 page long adventure, and I would be fine with it, right? That would be when him and Kaladin Brood meet up. I was like, okay, give me a book of them finding their way wherever they decide to go, and then they meet back up for the climax. And then when he went with the Monranth Silver, I was like, okay, they can make a good duo, because this series is built on duos. Because it's Erickson and Esslemont themselves are a duo. So the series just works on duos, and Torvald is he's the straight man. So as soon as you throw a curveball, whether that be an Elder God or like a different culture. And in book 4 in House of Chains, it was Karsa, and so when you throw I'd say not a fellow straight man at him, he just glows, right? It's just so fun to read about him because he's not mean, but he's not like sweet either. He's just a perfect neutral broth. Like he's the base for any good character combination. And then Barathol. Okay, Barathol had a really strange arc. So did Scalara. Honestly, Scalara, I don't remember from book 8 where she left off, like very particularly. I know her storyline and stuff, but I don't remember where if she was like feeling that way about her child in book 8, or if that's kind of something that Esslemont just took and ran with, because it feels very pronounced here. And I mean, Barathol, I was never really bored with this book. This book is pretty good pacing, right? But Barathol really felt like kind of like, oh well, we should include him and as more than just a character, like a cameo character, yeah. And it just felt a little bit weird. And then Vorkan, I will just say that Vorkan and her guard. So that's like, I forget. You have the guy wrapped up in cloth, and then the three Segule. Okay, I've been saying Segule wrong this entire series since book 1 or book 3 or wherever we're introduced to them. Entirely wrong. So I'm trying to drill it into my brain now that they were in this book more. Yeah. Like they're revealed to be, well, not revealed, but they're the 3 Segule, and one of Envy's guards gets banished, which, you know what, it's interesting. We get a really opening the door on the Segule in this book, which is so welcome, because I remember the early days of Malazan right up until, well, I'd say right up until Midnight Tides, really, when it was constantly revealing new and interesting information about these interesting cultures that inhabited this world. And I was constantly like, you had stuff about the Amas and the Tistandi, and then you had the Tistadur, and then you had all this stuff. And in book 6, I guess the constant stream, right, of new information about these things, kind of, the valve was kind of like turned down, which that's fine. We kind of knew a lot about them, and for it to be constant through 10 books would overload us with information. But and then it kind of shrunk down to the individual experiences. Instead of the Amas culture as a whole, it was this Amas and this Amas and this Andy and this Adur. So it kind of worked out. But the glimpse we get into the Monranth and the door open wide we get into this Segule was really, really fun to read about. And the Vorkan, you know what? I missed her. I missed her throughout this entire book. I get why she did it. She probably saved a lot of the cast by locking herself away, because if she got mind controlled by the Legate, it's done. It's done. It's done. She like, bye-bye Taya, don't need you anymore, because your mother is like basically the evolved Pokemon form of you. And then Envy, okay. I'm pretty sure it was Envy, but Envy was in the original adventuring party with Osric, Triss, and Anomander, and she just keeps falling down. Like okay, she was cool. That was her. Yeah, she was cool in book 3, right? A bit arrogant, like as is her character. She's Lady Envy, and then in book 8, it's like, okay, you're still on the right side of history. And then she sees her sister, and like, it's like when you meet someone, you're like, oh, this person is cool, and then they just flip out at this to you it's a random thing, but to them it's not random. But they flip out, and you just can't look at them the same. That's basically what happened to Lady Envy, where it's like you just saw a side of her that you never wanted to see, and then she just kind of keeps going. Like Fisher, you get Fisher's perspective in, I think, both Toll the Hounds and this book, and well, not like his. Yes, you do get his perspective, right? And she just, every time, like in this book, I was like, oh, finally they found each other, and then oh damn, go get that head patched up, Fisher. That's crazy. And then Scorch and Lef. Scorch and Lef to me are what I almost called them strings, are what Fiddler and I'm still a bit tired. Fiddler and Hedge were like kind of implied to be, right? Not as dumb, like Scorch and Lef are way dumber. That's kind of their gimmick. But like, just the two, like, why are we here, Hedge? I don't know, Fiddler. We should probably find our way out of here. Yeah, that's probably right. Just what I imagine them to be like, just the two who are like constantly like, I thought you said it, playing those games. And by themselves, without even thinking of them like that, they're pretty, I would say, entertaining. I take entertaining out of them. I could see, because I'm kind of annoyed by Krupp right now. Ever since book like 3 when he reappeared, I don't know. He's not bad, but he's not as funny as he was in book, or as enjoyable as he was in book 1 for me, in Gardens. And these guys are kind of filling that niche of like, okay, these guys can be comedic. Like, their whole thing isn't, what are we capable of? You'll never know. It's, we're just dumb and we're easily manipulated, which they get manipulated in this book. And it's just fun to read about them, to a certain point. There are points where it kind of chafes against the pacing I want. Like, I'm like, okay, come on, we're just talking about how dumb you guys are. Let's go. And then it does, and then it does. So I can't complain that much. And Picker and Blend, that I will say, if I had to guess, I think that these are Erickson's characters that have to be around, but aren't focused on tremendously because this is an Esslemont book. And the same thing with Antsy and Spindle, because those two were in book 8, but they weren't like the focus. Like, Antsy got a bit of the spotlight, and Spindle got a bit of the spotlight near the end. But this book really like brings them up to the surface, and I'm thinking, oh, those are Esslemont. Okay, because what probably happened is at the end of book 3, Erickson calls up Esslemont and is like, okay, here's what's happening, right? They're dying. Pick the guys that you want to keep around, and they'll be around. And he went Antsy and Spindle. Just a wild guess, but something like that, where Esslemont got to pick 2 characters to keep, right? And you know what? Spindle was fun to read about. I like Spindle, and he's in God Is Not Willing, and I'm pretty excited for that. And then I guess Antsy, he was less antsy to me, but like I don't mean the emotion or the feeling, but like the person, he was less of himself. But that's because we see inside, right? You got that friend who is a complex person, and like all this stuff meant like figuratively, not figuratively, but like it on an unconscious level. But he just has his gimmick, and you're like, wow, like, you know what I mean? It's just, it was like, okay, I get it. I would be annoyed if Antsy was written like he was in Toll the Hounds and in book 3, right? In Memories of Ice. If he was written like that the whole book, I'd be like, come on, dude, please. So he wasn't. And now I like him even more, which is a crazy play. Okay. One thing I have to say, right, is next time when I reread the novels in Last Empire, I really have to pay attention to Taya, because I could tell that's a character that went right over my head, and I'm like, oh. She appeared in Return of the Crimson Guard, and she might have appeared before that, but she definitely appeared in Return of the Crimson Guard and this book, which I understood it, but I have to just like close read every scene she's in or every scene she's mentioned in, because I feel like I know that I'm missing something. Could be. Okay, Malachi, right? Cool character, kind of a letdown. And in that way of being let down, I saw a theory before I started reading this book that Malachi was Cutter, and I gotta say, no. Esslemont even said, I won't spoil the fun. And before I read this book, I was like, okay, well, that he said it in kind of a yeah, basically way, but I'm thinking that he kind of, it doesn't matter in the end, and in my headcanon that really, well, not in my headcanon, but my interpretation of the story, it brings down his character in the other books to have him be Malachi in this book. So he's not Malachi. To me, at least. It's a fan theory. I don't subscribe to it. But otherwise, he was fine. He was fine. I expected a bit more from him. He was fine. Orchid and Corian were fun to read about, and I really hope they return in like the next novel set in Georgistan. Maybe not Orchid, but like Corian. I hope he makes his experience, and I hope that he isn't just killed off, as all the limbs really seem to be kind of heading for. But yeah. So I said the Segula were very interesting to read about, but Jan specifically, like his I remember reading this like early on, and I was like, oh my god, we're getting like an actual perspective from a Segula. Like that is big. And honestly, it was Yusek's perspective that made me understand the most, because Yusek is an outsider, and we're in the same position as Yusek, and we understand why Saul is like that. But Jan is really interesting because that's a first person, like not first person, but like it's a first primary source, right? It's a primary source about what Segula are like and how their society works, and we get to see both like peacetime and wartime. It's sad that he dies, but it happens. And okay, we got 3 more points here. I think, is this a little bit foolish? Should I be listened to? I don't think so. I think this is a little bit wishful and a little bit foolish of me to say, but I'm gonna say it anyways because I really do think it sometimes. Like, indulge in that thought and say that would be so much fun. I think that Kiska, looking for Taishren, should have gotten its own book that slots right between Stonewielder and this book, and then have Taishren and Kiska at the end of the book kind of leave and then show back up in Orb Scepter Throne. That would have been big, because I think that they're kind of a constant, and like move all their storylines from Stonewielder into this too, because it's a constant drain on the pacing. Like every time I would hit one of those, there's nothing happening. And you might say, well, if they're all in one book, then it's gonna be a book of nothing. And to that I say, you can find things to put in their way. He's the like, if you were writing a book that was just the hunt for Taishren, there would be more conflict. Don't you worry. There would be more conflict. The conflict with the mage, I forget his name, but the mage from Return of the Crimson Guard, there would be more conflict with him. There would be more conflict with the beings on the shore. There would be more info about Maker, which maybe we don't need, but it would be nice. Like there would be more, right? This wouldn't just be an empty book. Leomin was cool to have around. That's the second point. Leomin, I think it was cool. It's kind of an epilogue to his story, which is fine. And then Morn, having Draconis there. Okay, I'm gonna end this review here though. It's just such a crazy book in the grand scheme of things. It really made me feel that like classic, that like early Malazan nostalgia, and like that feeling that I felt then about learning about these cultures and really getting to know them, right? Yeah, I recommend every Malazan reader, if you liked the original 10 books, read this series. Even better if you're just starting, interweave them. They go together. If you look up novels Malazan reading order and you go to the wiki, it's pretty much good. It's a good reading order. All right, bye.